spreading the word of resilience and how people can increase their resilience to lead better lives. So after a few years before my sister's accident, we had a family friend who actually lost their son, sorry, more sadness, in a drive-by shooting. To this day, that woman, so the woman who lost her son, she is so bitter. She is full of blame and grief and anger, not just toward the shooter, but also his entire family. And she's holding on to that with such intensity that I tell my mom, I think she's going to put herself in an early grave because she just can't let go. And nobody's asking her to forget her son or, to stop loving him or missing him every single day, but to let go of that and get through that situation and be more resilient would do her wonders. So why do some people quickly bounce back after a difficult experience and other people struggle? Those two situations with the loss of a family member in tragic ways, we have completely different stories from the accident or the tragedy forward. But why? Why are some people different in those situations? And why do some people take longer to get to that point, while other people even seem maybe to get stuck and never really move on from that difficult situation? While other people yet not only bounce back from it, but sometimes it seems like it propels them forward and they do even better on the other side of a difficult situation. While this is not about the COVID situation, I don't want to make it about that. We can't help but think this is a real live example of all of our ability to examine our resilience and practice our resilience, right? So I will talk about COVID in this presentation. But why will some people come out of that experience, or this experience that we're all living right now, stronger than when they went into it? Others will take a long time to bounce back, if they ever bounce back from it. The same goes for businesses. I know some are hit much harder than others, depending on a lot of different factors, but you're going to see that some businesses actually thrive in the midst of this and after all of this pandemic. Even in some of the hardest hit industries, you'll see some businesses do really, really well and others that won't do so well. And there's very specific reasons why those differences are going to happen. Some businesses and some people will come out of this kicking ass and they'll be thriving and doing amazing, while others will really just flounder. So the question I have to you is, which of those people do you want to be? Which of those businesses do you want to lead or be part of? I know for me what I want. I want to be the person who comes out like, here I am, world, I survived and I'm thriving. And I want that for my business too. So if you're on this, and I'm guessing because you're on this call, you probably are that same person. And that's what I want to dig into today is how can we be that person in that business? So after years of growing and practicing my own resilience and my own level of resilience, which I'm going to tell you a lot more about, and then years of observing others and their resilience, or often it's lack of resilience, and then also years of research on the topic, because I'm kind of a nerd like that, and when I get something that I'm so passionate about, I love to just dig right into it and ask tons of questions and read all the research and figure it out, right? I want to understand this topic that I'm so passionate about. So I can tell you the good news. The good news is that if you believe resilience is a good thing, and I hope at this point we all do, resilience can be developed. So if you feel like you're not super resilient right now, or if you learned some things along the way in this presentation where you're like, oh, I could probably do better, the good news is that you can do better if that's what you'd like to do. There are key things that we can do to learn to bounce back from and lead through difficult situations. And by the way, I'm so used to doing presentations in person. Like if I get up and walk away because I'm used to walking a stage, someone just like, I guess I'm tethered by my cord here, so I won't get more than 5 feet away, but someone just pull me back. I already feel myself like having trouble staying in one spot. So I want to walk you through these key strategies to improve resilience and to help you learn how to build your resilience that'll help you in your career and your life. Of course, this is always very, very fitting, but like I said, during this time of this global pandemic, it's even more fitting because you are living a real life example right now where you can put strategies into practice like today, while you're on this call even. You could start these things right now. So last week, Nikki mentioned that I write a column for the Alpena News. I was going to write it on resilience because it's so applicable at this time in everybody's lives. I was doing some research on it, and I came across an article that was recently published on MSN, and it was titled, "Resilience is the most powerful skill kids can develop right now." I would encourage you to look that up. You can Google it by the title or send me a message later and I can send you the link. But I'll tell you, that article was spot on. But what I felt could have been mentioned in the article was that it's not just about children. Adults can also increase and improve their resilience. And I'll also take it one step further and say, if you have children that you are influencing in your life and you're not practicing resilience, you are not doing those children any favors, because you're not setting that example for them and teaching them what resilience is and what it looks like. So I'm going to spend the rest of the time talking or looking at the things that resilient people do differently than people who maybe don't have that same level of resilience. Now, all of the things kind of fall into one category. We as human beings who live in a free country, which we all do, we have this incredible thing that is accessible to us every single day, and that's choice, right? And sometimes we forget that we have that ability to choose, and sometimes we take it for granted. Resilient people, the most resilient people, do not take choice for granted. Instead, they exercise their ability all the time to make choices. They choose lots of things, but most important to their resilience, I think the most important choice they make to their resilience is to choose a positive attitude, to choose their own perception, and to choose to engage in things that will take them closer to and not further from their goals, right? So they're choosing that consciously all the time. And your level of resilience is directly related to the choices that you make. So I'm going to tell you a story about a man. This man, who's pictured with his granddaughter. So this man was a very, very successful man in a career in manufacturing. He was one of the first 6 employees at a manufacturing facility that now has almost 1,000 employees. He started on the shop floor right out of high school, doing welding, fabricating, assembly work, the shop work, right? And he worked his way up into management and into leadership roles, and he ended up with a whole lot of responsibilities. He had a wife and 4 children. I think there's a song that says that. He had a wife and 4 kids. Yeah. Do you remember singing that in kindergarten as a kid? Okay. So he had a seemingly happy life. His family went on vacations every summer. They had a great house. They had property. They had a lot of fun. He was providing for his family. But he had something else too. He also had an addiction. He was addicted to alcohol. And the addiction had an increasingly tight grip on this man's life. It got to a point where he lost his job after about 35 years. His marriage, of about the same 30 years, ended in divorce. He lost another job, and then he lost another job. When his children didn't hear from him for days at a time, they would call him and they would text him and he wouldn't answer. One of them would have to go out and check on him. And that they didn't know if they would find him dead or alive because he would talk about suicide quite frequently. He spent time in jail, and eventually he was sent to drug court. Now, I don't know if you've heard of drug court, but I'll give you a quick overview of what that is. So if you are committing crimes that you likely wouldn't be committing if it wasn't for an addiction, they might send you to drug court instead of just serving time in jail or prison, because the thought is if we can address the underlying cause, which is the addiction, then the crime part will go away, right? So if he wasn't an alcoholic, he wouldn't be getting DUIs. He wouldn't be whatever else. If you're a drug addict, you wouldn't be maybe stealing money from family because you're trying to afford your drugs. So the crime would go away if you can solve the underlying issue. Now, the drug court experience was very, very rocky for him at first, but then it started working for him. His family told him that they would only help him if he was sober and if he was helping himself, and they stuck to that. Drug court was very difficult, especially without a valid driver's license. He lived 10 miles out of town, and he was required to get to a certain number of AA meetings, group therapy, one-on-one counseling, the actual drug court sessions themselves. He had to do either work or volunteer service, a pretty intense program. So on days when he didn't ride his bike to and from those things, 10 miles back and forth, so 20 miles total, maybe it was a severe thunderstorm or a snowstorm, which he even did ride in those conditions sometimes, he would beg people for rides, put his humility or any shame he felt aside, and he would beg for rides. And people would help him. He didn't have any money to pay for cabs. He wasn't working at the time. So he did whatever he could to get through the drug court program. And after 2 years in the program, he graduated. His entire family was there. His ex-wife was there, his children were there, and his children's spouses were there. He has been sober now for 4 years. He's holding down a really great job, and he's actually working his way back into some leadership roles in those positions. But he is doing it with a much more humble and attitude, and also with more gratefulness. Now, if you think about that story, there are multiple resilient people and examples of resilience in that story. There's the man, right? Without getting into a discussion of, is addiction a choice? Is it a disease? That's not what this is about. But I can tell you that this man was knocked down time and time and time again during his journey through recovery. And each time, he made the decision to get back up. And then he ultimately chose sobriety, and he chose a change in his perception about who he was and who he had the ability to be. There was also the resilience of the family members. They made choices to stand by him when he was on track and to not enable him when he wasn't on track. His ex-wife is another example of resilience. She chose to have a better life because she knew the life she was living. There was something better for her out there. She chose to attend Al-Anon meetings, and to this day, even though they're not married, she still, and he's been sober for years, she still goes to Al-Anon meetings, much like Zoom meetings now, actually online, because she realized that she didn't want to play the victim role, and that was a very positive way to live her life. To this day, his family is very, very proud of him. He and his ex-wife are very good friends, and his children invite him to be part of their lives and part of his grandchildren's lives. So how do I know so much about this man? Well, that man is my father. He is one of the most resilient people I know. And then 2 years into his sobriety, to lose a daughter to a drunk driver and still persevere and come out on top, that is what resilience looks like. Because resilient people choose to see difficult times simply as a moment in time, as a hurdle to overcome, and not the end of the road. It is not a brick wall that you can't get past, right? Difficult times are a moment, a snapshot of your life. And in the big picture of life, there's a whole lot of other things out there for us. So my dad kept choosing to get back up. We chose to be there for him and let him back into our family when he was sober. His addiction was a hurdle for each of us individually. It was a hurdle for him, absolutely, and for our family unit as a whole. But it wasn't insurmountable. It wasn't something that we just turned a blind eye to because we just couldn't get past it or couldn't get through it. It was something that we had to work to overcome. We could have written him off. We chose to forgive him, and believe me, there were lots of things we had to forgive him for. He could have quit trying, but thank the Lord he didn't, because he's still with us today. Resilient people are very, very resourceful. They keep trying to find solutions. So if that didn't work, I try something else. If that didn't work, I try something else. They try and they try and they try. They keep moving forward because they know the situation they're in that moment is not all that there is. There's something bigger, something else, something beyond just that difficult experience. So let's talk a little bit. I'm so tired of that stinking virus graphic that they keep using, so I had to find one that was a little bit more fun. I know the virus isn't fun, but that, you know, the red one I'm talking about? Yeah, it's just, I'm over it, right? So I want to talk about the COVID situation. This is a situation that we are all going through that is going to test our resilience. Now, I don't necessarily know that I agree with the we're all in this together, because we are all experiencing this in very, very different ways. But all of our resilience is being tested. Many businesses and individuals are struggling, many are not. Some may be struggling with finances, mental health, stress, childcare issues, annoying spouses, loneliness, lack of human touch. There's all kinds of things that people are struggling with throughout this experience. Some of them are spending their time blaming. And no matter who they are blaming, the virus, the president, the governor, the Chinese, the bats, the chickens, I don't know. It doesn't matter who they're blaming. But the people who are spending their time blaming at this time, I can tell you that those are not the people that are going to get through this with the most resilience. The people who have made the choice to spend their time binge watching Netflix, and they get, what's the meme that says, I finished Netflix, now what? Those are not going to be our most resilient people. The people who are choosing to spend their time knocked down with worry are not our most resilient people. The people who are not looking beyond the here and now, even though it's spanning several months, there is a lot of life beyond this. There's a lot of other things out there for us. Those are not our most resilient people. And I don't actually apologize if I offended anyone, because you are the Netflixer. However, I believe that if you're on this call, that's probably not you. Here is who I believe is going to be most resilient in this, and maybe not get through it the easiest, but come out of it with guns blazing, ready to go, and thriving in life. These are going to be the people who are using this time to catch up on things around the house, to read and fill their minds with value instead of trash, the people who are embracing the opportunity to spend more time with their family instead of complaining about all the time they're stuck with their family, the people who are maybe picking up a new hobby like they always wanted to do, the people that no matter what normal looks like on the other end of this, that they'll get through it and come out with something positive to show for it, because that's the choice they have made. The businesses that I think will be most resilient are the ones who are taking this time to put some elbow grease into their facilities, to rewrite their business plans, which is something that most businesses always need to be doing but aren't, to businesses that are starting new social media accounts, that are creating new communication channels with their customers, that are developing new ways to create revenue, creative ways to create revenue at this time. Those are the ones that are going to be most resilient and will come out of this experience much stronger. The ones who come out of this experience, the businesses, with the greater understanding of the importance of saving and cash flow management, the ones who come out of this with better and greater levels of customer service because they now understand and internalize the importance of taking care of customers you have, as well as getting new customers. The businesses who are bringing their teams together, whether they're still working or not, bringing them together to talk about the opportunities that could come out of this situation and what it's going to be like when things have really calmed down, and then take action or make plans accordingly. Those are the businesses that we will see flourish at the end of this. And honestly, some already are, because they're doing those things. Some are surprising me, like you were mandated to close, yet you are doing amazing because you found creative new ways to manage your staff, to gain customer support, to create new revenue. The ones who are sitting idly by and just thinking, this is an experience happening to me, and I can't do anything until someone else lifts the veil, those are not the resilient ones. Because resilient people are never the victim. They choose never to be the victim. They choose instead opportunity and growth, and they choose to keep learning no matter what. They don't let others determine their destiny for them, and they choose it on their own. So let's go back to my sister's accident. When we went to court to see sentencing for the young man who was driving the other vehicle, we got to give what is called victim impact statements. Now, I delivered one, 3 of us could. I did one, my brother did one, and then my brother-in-law, my sister's husband, delivered one. Talk about a flood of emotions, oh my goodness. When I spoke, I got to look in the eyes of the driver and tell him whatever I wanted. And the purpose is to maybe give some influence to the judge as far as what they might sentence that person. So I told the driver, I said, you made a really bad choice that night. I told him he chose to drink and drive, right? That's a choice. And in doing so, you took the life of someone amazing. He stripped my family of my sister Liz. His choice stripped her husband of his best friend. I mean, I wrote a card every year on their anniversary. I gave it to my sister and her husband, and it said, if I ever get married again, I want to have a relationship like yours. They were like best friends, so supportive of one another. It was the marriage that I really admired most in my life. His selfish choice stripped my nieces and nephews of a very special aunt, and it stripped my parents of a daughter. So I told him, and I told the judge, I honestly did not care what sentence he got, because to me, it didn't matter if it didn't impact the way he saw his life and the way he thought about life. And that was the truth. I really didn't care. I told him that all I cared about was that he changed his perspective. I told him I wanted him to realize how lucky he was to be alive and how fortunate he was to be able to make choices. Because you know what? My sister will never make another choice. I wanted him to change his perspective and his way of thinking and his attitude about the value in life and about opportunities that present themselves to us all of the time to make choices and to learn. And I wanted that to then drive his future decisions. And to me, that's all I wanted from him. I didn't care about the sentence. I wanted him to feel fortunate every single time he did something that he may have complained about before. Hard yard work, changing a tire, folding laundry, changing a diaper, washing dishes, no matter what it is, we all have the opportunity to change our perspective and feel fortunate for things we get to do, right? Things that we're able to do, that we're capable of still doing. So in a sense, I was asking him to adopt an attitude of resilience and to choose resilience. That's what I wanted from him. Because I firmly believe if we go into life or go through life rolling our eyes and feeling aggravated and, oh, I have to do this and I have to do that, and are you kidding me? There's laundry again and the dish, I swear I just washed those dishes. If that's how we go through life, guess what we get from life? That same feeling, that same attitude, that same negativity. But if we go into situations and experiences with a desire to learn and an attitude that we're lucky and fortunate and blessed to be able to participate, and that it's a gift for us to soak up knowledge, then that's what we get out of life. We get a greater value and we get more success and a greater experience in our lives. So remember, changing your perspective is something that's always available to you, but it's up to you to make that decision to do so. And exercising our right to choose is, in my opinion, the foundational strategy behind great levels of resilience. Yes, the accident was tragic and sad. Yes, I miss her tremendously every single day. But the experience allowed me to exercise my ability to choose. And I chose resilience. And I will choose resilience every single time. I choose to see the lessons in forgiveness, the lessons about truly enjoying and living a full life. I choose a positive outlook. I choose not to be the victim. And this is my favorite. I choose never to put a question mark where God puts a period. That is what resilient people do. They make choices that make them resilient. And the more that we do that, the more just natural it becomes to be resilient people. So I'm going to tell you one more story. I know it's lots of stories. Before I conclude with a brief summary. So several years ago, it was a beautiful fall day. This is Maverick. I was walking Maverick. It was like crisp, clear. The leaves were beautiful and changing. The sky was just clear, that like crystal blue color, a couple of pretty white clouds. The kind of fall day where you think, I don't care what else I have to do. I have to get out and enjoy this because there is going to be snow right around the corner and I need to soak this day up because it's the last one for a very long time. And I don't know if everyone on here is from Northern Michigan, but you know what I'm talking about, right? So I was walking the dog, and he was a really great dog, but my husband at the time, we had adopted him at 1.5 years old. So he came with some quirks and behaviors that we just, for the life of us, could not train out of him. And one of those things was he was a runner. So he was either always fenced in or he was always on a leash. However, there was one spot we could take him. It was this watering hole, and not a bar. We weren't taking him to a bar. but a water area, right? It was by a culvert on a dead end road, and he could get off leash there because there weren't people, there wasn't traffic, and he was so entertained by what was in the water and trying to catch, which he never actually did, but he would try to catch the fish and the frogs, and he would swim with a stick in his mouth, and while he did that, he made this cute little whistling noise. So I could take him there, let him off the leash, he would get his exercise. So we went there, we got to the culvert, I let him off his leash, he jumped in, and beautiful day, I'm sitting on a rock watching the dog, and at that time in my life, from the outside looking in, people would tell you that I had my shit together. Like I was going places, right? They would say, she's got a great life. I mean, I was married at the time, I had a great job, I was doing really well at that job, I had a master's degree, I was fit, I was a runner, and I regularly worked out, I had amazing friends and family who all loved me very much, I was adventurous, I was exploring, I got to travel a lot. I mean, it was good stuff, right? So why, on a beautiful day with a fun dog to watch who just cracked me up, all of these positive things in my life, why was I sitting there that day on that rock crying? People wouldn't have believed it. You know, if they saw me, they would have thought something seriously had gone wrong. But I'll tell you the reason. It was because that day I decided I either needed to get serious about getting help or I needed to end my life. That's where I was at that day because I had been struggling for years with an eating disorder and depression. And it was a battle. It was so hard to not have my inside match my outside. And I couldn't live like that anymore. It was painful every single day. I had tried to get help with therapy a couple of times. It didn't work. Whether it was a mismatch of therapists and me, probably more I just wasn't ready for that kind of change because that's really scary. But I was at the point that day where something had to work. I wasn't ready to quit, like the ultimate quit. I was not ready for that. So even though it was a Saturday, I called behavioral health and I left a message knowing nobody would answer because it's a clinic, and I didn't want to call 911 because I knew I wasn't an immediate threat to myself, right? So I called, left a message, knowing that they'd call me back Monday and that if I waited till Monday to call, I would chicken out and not make the phone call. So I made the phone call. They called me back Monday. And even though this sounds really simple, the 10 or so years following that day was actually a very, very difficult journey. I always described my eating disorder as like a bad best friend. Like, who wants to have no friends? So a bad one is better than no friends. And binging and purging was not healthy, and I knew that, but it was so hard to give up that bad best friend that was there, always there for me in the most difficult times, right? Who would I be without that? So I am happy, though, to tell you that through lots of therapy, lots of hard work, medication, and ultimately it boils down to making choices that resilient people make. So all the things I talked about, those are the choices that I had to make and the things that I had to live every single day to be able to sit here today and honestly say to you, or to say to you honestly, I suppose, that I am the happiest that I can ever remember being in my life. So I really don't like talking this much about myself, but I am so passionate about the topic of resilience. I feel like telling these stories is the way to get my message across. I believe in the power of sharing these stories and letting people know that you can be more resilient, you can be happy, no matter what situation you're in. There is always something else out there, something better for you if you're in a bad situation. And we must commit to growing our resilience if we want to come out of difficult situations in the best place that we can be and thriving. And we want to get further ahead. I could go on and on of stories. I mean, I think we probably all have laundry lists, right? Broken bones, which is actually just my klutzy behavior. That's on me. Losing a bid for state representative. That dog, sadly, a very tragic death. I mean, these are all really difficult things that when we make the choice to be resilient and have these resilient behaviors, we get through them and they make us better people in the end. So resilient people They choose positive attitudes. And in that, that includes kindness to themselves and kindness to others. And the piece of that we often forget is the kindness to ourselves piece of that. But it's very important. Resilient people choose to get through life using logic to problem solve and not emotion. Not to say they don't have emotions, but they really think about their lives in a logical way and say, I can get with these steps, ABC will get me to the ultimate goal of Z, right? They choose to get up every time they're knocked down, whether it's one time or 1,000 times, they get back up every single time. And that's so cliche, but it's so true. They choose to see and embrace the lesson in every experience, including, and probably most importantly, in difficult times. They choose never to be the victim. They choose to see situations as temporary and not permanent. They choose opportunity and they choose growth. They choose a positive outlook on life, but in a very realistic way. So no Pollyannas, but they choose positivity over negativity. They choose to set and stick to boundaries. But I say the most important thing that resilient people do is they exercise that ability to choose. And they make choices that are resilient in nature. They don't let life happen to them. They work so that life happens for them. Everything they go through is an experience and makes them a better person. So if it's about something as simple, seemingly simple as choice, and if resilience is so important, then why don't more people do it, right? Why don't we all just make these choices? Because it's not easy. These are not easy things to consistently do every single day, again and again and again, because a lot of times we have to consciously remind ourselves to do them until we get to a point where it's second nature because we've done it that way for 15 years. It is not, resilience is not the easier way to be. It's just like everything else that's good. You know, if it's good, it's usually difficult to attain, right? So it is not easy. And not everyone has the drive to adopt and consistently practice those behaviors. I would guess, though, that those of us on this call have that drive or you wouldn't be here, right? So in preparation for this event today, I tossed a question out on my LLC Facebook page, and I just asked people, I said, what does resilience mean to you? Like, what do resilient people do that those who aren't as resilient aren't doing? They shared a lot of different things, but I think the person who summed it up the best was the gal who said this. She said, it's an unwillingness to accept that their current situation is all there is for them, that through perseverance, there is a better way, a better life, and they also possess the determination to get there. And I think she's right. I mean, I could have skipped the whole presentation and just read that, right? There is no secret to being resilient. It honestly, if you need a secret, this is it. It's making the choices and consistently making those choices about how we respond during those difficult, challenging situations. Whew. So there you go. I am very willing to answer any questions if anybody's got anything to ask.
Everybody has the ability to unmute themselves. Can we all who have your cameras on do a virtual clap? Congratulations, Jackie. That was absolutely fantastic. Lots of hands going. We still have, you know, a good 10, 15 minutes left, and I really would love to field some questions for Jackie if anybody has any, or tips, maybe requests to, you know, move forward. And if you've got something in particular that you want to address, Jackie's a resource for sure. So don't be shy. Go ahead and ask. I do have a question in the chat box for you, Jackie. What can we do to help support people that are not so resilient? Ooh,
that's a good one. I think,
excellent.
Yeah, I think honestly, the most valuable thing you can do is practice your own resilience and not enable them to not be resilient. So if you are not letting people in your life fail and not letting them learn lessons, you are not doing them any favors in their resilience. So practice your own resilience and show, like, it's okay if I'm not perfect in it, but I'm trying to get better every step of the way. So to do it through demonstration, but then also I think it's just so important not to enable them to not be resilient. So it stems everything from the parent that tries to call and get a job for their adult child. that is not teaching somebody resilience, right? They're doing the work for them. You really need to learn those lessons on your own. To like this woman who lost her son in a drive-by shooting, like we should not be enabling her to continue to live her life with that guilt. And if she continues to want to, oh, woe is me and this is horrible, it's you, at some point you have to separate yourself from that and say, these are skills that you can use to be happier. But if you're not going to do that, then I can't keep enabling you to just be that not resilient person. It's tough love, it's hard.
If anybody's having trouble to unmute, there's a couple, you can do a little raised hand or chat. So I have you all unmuted on my end, or the ability to unmute yourselves. So if you have a trouble and can't get yourself unmuted, go ahead and throw something in the chat box. Jackie, I have a question for you. What would be working into, I mean, we all hate making everything about COVID, but obviously resilience right now is more important than ever for people. And kind of tying off of that chat question, what do you do to help people who maybe aren't as resilient? Is there a way that when it comes to the big, huge political and personal divide, is there a way that resilience plays into that? Is it the resilient person who says, I'm going to do whatever I have to make sure we get past this? And how do you use your own resilience to make sure that you aren't contributing to what's going on as far as that complete and total polarization of views right now?
Yeah, how much time do we have? that's a good question.
Are we back to choice? I mean, it is.
It really does come back to choice, because I don't want to tell someone how they should feel about, I know how I feel about this situation, and I know what I believe and what I don't believe and what I think, should we wear masks or shouldn't we, or are the numbers accurate or aren't they? Like, I know what I believe, and I don't want to push that on anyone else. And I think that is something that we all should be doing, is live your life. And that is resilience. Like, live your life in the way that is most healthy for you, and stay off of social media. Like, don't get involved. Have you ever actually changed your mind about something because somebody's posted a position on social media? Probably not. So stay out of that stuff. Like, do the things that make you like a happy person at the end of every day, and a grateful person and a resilient person. And a lot of times those behaviors are not those things. Those behaviors are not our resilient people that are out there spending hours a day trying to convince someone that has a completely opposite viewpoint of their viewpoint. That's not a resilient person. You're not building these healthy skills. You're really just stirring things up. Yeah. So I don't know if I really answered your question, but
you did.
Just like live your life for yourself and do the things that make you happy at the end of the day. And I would venture to guess, without having done any sort of like analysis of this, but I would venture to guess that the people who sit there and like battle back and forth about these totally polarizing topics, those are not our resilient people.
No, I would venture to guess you're very right. Does anybody else? Lisa has a comment. I think we can lead others with our resiliency, and I think that's very true. Does anybody else have a comment or question that they would like to add to the chat, or just wave your arms around if you can't seem to unmute yourself? Some people can, some people can't. It's being kind of funny. You guys are quiet.
I kind of want to see if oh, there we go. So with sharing my screen, I couldn't see everybody. I could only see 4 people the whole time. Yeah, so hi everybody. Now I see everyone.
She's like, that's better.
Yeah. Oh, there is men and women on the call. That's nice to see too.
Yes, nice mix. Does anybody have anything at all? Raise your hand. I did unmute Barbie. I know you were having trouble, so if you wanted to ask a question, I got you unmuted. Cindy wants to ask something, I think, too.
No, I was just going to say I had gone through another course, and they suggested, and that's what I did, is pick 5 things that create balance and happiness for you. And I did, faith, family, fitness, fun, friends, and to live by that standard to create the resilience for you. And it's been very effective for me.
That's good. Really good. Anybody have any other contributions they'd like to make too? Well, thank you, Jackie.
I have one more thing.
I was going to say, do you have any parting thoughts for us?
I do. Well, it's not really a thought. It's just it's something that I'm just offering. So with my business, part of what I do in my LLC is I think that our world lacks kindness. I mean, there's so much hatred and anger out there, and it really bothers me. And I don't know what I can do about it other than, you know, being a kind person and being a good person and living my life that way. But I came up with, I don't know if they might be backwards. Are those backwards to you guys?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so I came up with a set of postcards, and they're all just like these mixed words of like, this is loving and amazing. So I want to send a set of these to everybody that's on the call, and just to help spread kindness. Because if we send positivity and just a note to someone who you think might, you know, maybe they don't get personal comments or personal like kindness or someone reaching out to them, it can make a huge difference. So I don't know how we're going to make that happen, Nikki, but I'd like to get a set of that to everybody.
Well, I have everybody's email address. So what I will do is I will go ahead and send that list to Jackie so she can reach out to you. You're getting lots of thanks in the chat. And Mr. Smith, I can't mute you. It says you have to allow it. So he really wants to say hi. But he says hi, thank you for your inspirational message. Great to see you. And he misses you. Yeah, some of you are saying ask to unmute. So I have a couple of you that I couldn't unmute you if I tried even as a host. So that's a unique new one for me in Zoom. Lots of thanks as well. Jackie, that's fantastic. I'll get you that.
Thank you guys.
For everyone. Thank you so much. I think really truthfully, this message was vitally important for everybody to hear, and we will post this as well on our webinar page on our website because it's definitely a good one. Lise?
Hey everyone, just wanted to let you know that next week on Wednesday at noon, we have Dr. Megan Rutherford, and she is going to be talking about mindfulness. So along with a lot of uncertainty, which leads to fatigue, mindfulness kind of helps you focus on that moment, similar to resiliency. So just wanted to let you know that the Chamber will be hosting that next week. And Jackie, you're amazing. We were going to have you speak at our Connecting Women in Business event, and we weren't able to have that. And I hope that in the future we can have you come and be in front of that audience because your messages and I mean just so inspirational. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. I just hope that I would be happy to come back. I just hope that I don't have any more like significant tragic stories to add to this list by then, right?
You can't add to your photo unless it's something else in the good side. Because
I know, right?
But you know,
that's
yeah.
So this is kind of off topic. We have a couple minutes, but all of my tattoos I don't have that many, but I have a handful of them, and they all come from like really significant things in my life. And as much as I would like to get another one, I'm like, I'm not getting another one because they're all tied to these like significant, kind of sad, tragic, but have also made me stronger events. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I might be done with tattoos based on that theory.
That's okay then.
Yeah.
Based on that theory, we'd like you to not have to worry about that.
Right?
No, I think it was so timely and it's great. And we can't wait to bring you in person when we can do that for sure. Big thank you to Citizens National Bank as our Winfluence sponsor. Again, I'm very happy that we can do these type of sessions for everyone. It's been very difficult as a chamber to go from having all these in-person events to having to flip it to this way, and it's tough for us too. And it's just great to see the support and your smiling faces and that you're taking part. And like Lisa said, mindfulness next week, resilience today. I think you're getting the message we're sending. We're all going to get through this together. And is like Jackie said, it's such a trite say, but we're all in it. So let's just all get on the other side, resilient and mindful, and whatever we have to do to, you know, continue to be the best people that we can be going forward. So thank you guys. Anything else, Jackie?
Nope. Thank you so much. Yep. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right. Lots of thanks in the chat box. And awesome. Thank you, everyone. And we hope to see you soon.
All right. Bye, everyone.